Welcome to the Design or Die podcast, meant to connect creatives together and help you navigate the struggles and the triumphs of what it means to be an entrepreneur so that you and your business can thrive. I'm your host, Collette. Let's get creative. Hey friends, I'm back with another episode. Finally, I know I've said I've been holding on to this one for a while, and I really have. I've had notes that I've just been adding to every time I think of another subject matter to add to this topic that I'm talking about today, but finally I'm putting it together, putting all my notes together to push it out there. With it being the start of fall, the start of September, just came back from our long weekend, from Labor Day weekend. I feel a sense of renewed energy, and I'm ready to kind of jump back into this. It's been really, really hard for small businesses lately. I get a little bit discouraged every time I open my Instagram app and I see a new business is closing their doors. So that's why I kind of haven't pushed this as much. It just didn't feel right to be like, yeah, you can do this, it's so easy. Of course, I never say that, but it just didn't feel right to try to encourage people to do something that may not be the best option for them right now. And that's not to say it's not the best option for anyone, but I do know that with the way of the world and people's finances, and we're all still recovering from a worldwide pandemic, inflation rate is nuts right now. It's really hard to sustain a business right now. But that's also why I do feel compelled sometimes to share what I know and give encouragement when needed, when necessary. So today's topic that I want to hit on is about business influencers and design trends. Also, starting a business from a hobby. So I'm going to jump right in and start with business influencers. So what is a business influencer? You've probably seen them pop up like a wildfire lately. It's basically someone who starts a business or adds it to the business that they're already doing by offering support and basically encouraging you to join their group, their masterclass, whatever it is, to share the knowledge that they have with you. Now, it sounds all good and fun when you see it, and I'm going to tell you the difference between a legitimate one versus someone who's literally just saying that they know something when they really have no experience in it or don't have the proof to show that what they're projecting actually works. So I'm going to go back to when I first started my wedding stationery business in 2019. It was right before the pandemic. I, of course, didn't really know what I was doing because it's a whole different ballgame from just graphic design that I'm used to. There's so many different etiquette, rules, ways to word invitations, what's correct, what isn't, what's professional, what isn't, and what makes sense. So there's a lot to learn, and that goes for any business that you're jumping into. There's so many things to learn, and you actually never stop learning. So I found somebody who offers basically a wedding booking class, and it's more about like bridal shows and events and things like that. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't really know this, so I'm going to pay for this book that they were sharing to learn more about it. I am in business, doing that business for over 5 years now, so I have a different perspective from when I started. And so the person that's sharing this, it's fair because they've been doing stationery design for a long time. What is a little misleading is I noticed they use these like high numbers to be like, you could be making $150K a year or $100K a year. You can be, your business can be doing that. But what I'm here to share is that number doesn't mean that's what you're profiting and putting in your pocket. That number that they're telling you is sales. So when you have sales at that number, it doesn't mean you're getting that amount. That doesn't mean you're making $100K a year or $150K a year. And here's the thing, when that person posted that on Instagram, oh, you can be making $150K a year, I actually commented on it and I said, is that profit or is that sales? And they deleted my comment, which to me, I'm actually a real person that paid for the service that they're offering. And the fact they tried to hide that information feels a little shady. You have to factor in your expenses, your overhead costs. For business, there's a lot of that. I've actually seen a lot of stationers kind of close their doors recently, especially with all the digital options they're putting out there, Canva, designers, people DIYing stuff. It's become really hard to sustain. And I've felt that too. I've actually gone back to my part-time office and doing the rest from home. I was paying for a full-time office, but with the way things have changed so fast and paper being so expensive after the pandemic and the shortage, it is really difficult. So, that being said, I know why all of these things are enticing. When you see someone that 100,000 followers and they look like they're living their best life and they're here to tell you how to do it. Now, there's kind of red flags in that, and being able to tell, okay, who's actually an expert in this field and can share what they know versus who's starting a business just catering to small business and trying to just make a buck. To me, it seems counterproductive. It seems sleazy sometimes because I am genuinely a person who wants to help small business, not take from them. That's why I do this podcast for free. That's why I used to give a lot of free tips and advice, and I still do on my blog and things like that. So the key difference here in noticing who's an expert and who just started a business saying they're an expert and wanting you to buy into this thing. What I want to see is, where's your actual receipts? Where are you actually thriving? Where does your experience come from? How can you tell me that you've actually successfully done this? If you're starting a business just saying you can help other businesses, well, what makes you qualified to do that? I want to see the concrete proof. And that doesn't mean showing me your books or anything like that. It's just, where did you come from? The key thing to notice, to me, it's almost a red flag if people have hundreds of thousands of followers. Followers do not mean success. Just because you have 10,000 people that have saw your viral post doesn't mean that's actually turning into sales and that these are actual clients that you have experience in. And there's some people that are very successful in their field, and that's why they started to do this, to share other people how to be successful in it. But I also want to share, it does depend on where you are, who your target market is, all of these things. What I really want to know, and what you should know and be asking, is, how are you qualified to tell me this? What are your credentials? What businesses have you successfully grown besides yours? If your entire business is built on making money from telling people you can help their business, I don't understand that. And I don't think that they're the best qualified person to tell you that. It's kind of a red flag to me when they stop doing their actual passion and craft and the thing they say they're an expert in and solely build a business based on selling their classes and their information. To me, if your business was so successful, why are you changing it up? Why are you offering something different? And why are you not still doing that thing that makes you so successful? Because if you're only doing the courses, the master classes, and you're not actually in the craft anymore, that is a red flag to me. And that's something to look out for. So back to the wedding one that I joined, I got some useful tips for events, for bridal things. It helped me kind of get started. But have I seen the actual reward versus what I paid for that course? No. I've actually found out that bridal shows are a huge waste of my time for stationery. And it works for some people, but almost always the people at bridal shows are on a budget, looking for a discount, things like that. So being a luxury stationer, that's not really my ideal client anyway. The tips that they gave me that I implemented never really worked. And that's not to say they don't work for other people who are maybe in a busier area and maybe the demographics different, maybe the target market is different, maybe they're looking for something different, maybe they don't want high-end clients and things like that, and that's fine and it works for some people, but it just felt like a waste of my time. And when I'm seeing still to this day, the person that created that sharing, oh, you can make 100K like I did in my business. I know for damn sure that you're not profiting 100K. It is really difficult to hit that kind of level in that field. Like I said, there's so much overhead and things like that. I mean, there's some business influencers out there where I literally can't figure out what they do besides just telling me they can improve my business. Well, how are you going to do that? Where's the street cred? What businesses have you improved? Where's your own business that was successful? What are you actually specialized in? Because to make a business thrive, you have to have some idea of the market, what goes into that business. For example, someone telling me how to run a stationery business, if they've never done it or helped people who have, I don't understand how that's actually going to help me. Just because they have a bunch of followers on Instagram and they're telling me I can make XYZ doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. They're only successful because they're convincing people that they're going to make them successful and making money off of it. It's kind of like a pyramid scheme where they keep making money and they keep telling people they're successful because they're making money, but they're not actually successful in a business. They created a business telling people that. So I just want to share, kind of do your research, and if you are needing help and tips from someone, make sure they're an expert in that field and make sure they're still in that field. If they switch 100% to influencing, that I don't know if I trust that. And if you feel differently and you have other opinions and you've done it and you can share your insight, I'd love to hear it. Because essentially, I do offer things like that. I have the podcast. I don't make any money from the podcast yet, but I offer business consulting and things like that. But it's more because I have the experience to share. I've been running my own business since I was in college in 2016 and kind of been doing that before then, and I have actually done a lot of different business types. I've done fine arts, I've done graphic design, I've done wedding stationery. Now I run a successful mobile dog grooming business that started from nowhere, and now I'm teaching the other locations how to run theirs. So I have that kind of behind me and feel qualified to share that. But I'm not out here trying to just get money for the sake of, oh, that's my business now. I genuinely care about these small businesses. And to me, it feels scammy and weird for these business influencers to come in and almost directly cater to the struggling businesses. It seems very much like they're just trying to make money quick and become successful in their own, but are they actually caring about your success? That is the main key there. You guys know I love giving you all the free tips for your small business, finding your passion, and navigating this entrepreneurial world. If you find value in this, you can donate monthly as low as 99 cents through my Spotify link to help keep this thing going. Thank you for listening. And that brings me to the next topic that I want to talk about, which is starting a business based off a hobby or based off something you just did for a friend. I see so many times somebody, does hair and makeup for a friend's wedding or does their stationery for a friend's wedding or their photography. And they automatically are like, yes, let's do this. I want to actually make this a business. They start an Instagram, they throw up a website, they start taking orders. They're priced very low because they're just starting. But what I want to strongly recommend to people is that do your research before you jump and dive in feet first. There is so many things that go into running a business. It's not just about that one factor. So just because you may be good at taking photos or doing hair and makeup or things like that doesn't mean you're going to run a successful business just by putting it out there. There's so many things that go into being able to do that. You got to start somewhere small and work your way up. It's almost offensive to people and small business owners and creators who have done the legwork for people to come in and pretend they're experts at something that they don't even know the basics of. For example, photography. You can love taking a photo, you can be good at taking photos and capturing moments and having the right composition and all of that, but there is actual groundwork that you must lay and learn to be able to have a successful photo and be recognized in the community and know what you're doing, because to me, that's the best way to run a business. You want to be well versed in the area that you're promoting and selling. If you don't take the time to start from square one and learn and work your way up, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're going to run into people that expected more and they gave you money, whatever that cost might be. You're going to run into people being upset. It is better to learn and build from that and start small. That might be taking a photography course online, or that might be picking up one class from your local college. All of those things are super important, like the fundamentals of the craft, and it honors the craft itself. It makes a lot of sense to want to make a business out of something you enjoy and are passionate about, but give the people that came before you some respect and yourself the respect to learn the trade before you turn it into a business. That's not coming from a place of butthurt or anything. That's literally because I know that there is foundations and rules and science behind all of it. Design, for example. There's a lot of people who've come out the woodworks and, they DIY'd their wedding invitations on Canva, and now they're a, quote, Canva designer. To the graphic designers that have been out here learning the stuff since college, went to school for it, studied it, paid thousands of dollars to learn that, it's a little offensive just because there is a reason behind it. Design isn't just about something pretty. There's actual psychological things to learn and things that it invokes in another person. Same with marketing. There is reasons for everything that it does. There's a reason for design. Every color, every font, every placement, everything has a meaning and a reason, and that is to entice the viewer or the potential client. It's not there just for a pretty look. So when you go into figuring out, the first steps of your business, you want a logo, a website, yada, yada. A lot of people DIY their logo on Canva. Here's the thing. If you're using a design that hundreds of other people have used, it's not going to be as effective for your business. It's not just about, here's my business name and I just need a little picture to put up there to look official. There's actual reason behind all the things that we do as designers to create it. And it devalues other designers and artists when people start a business in something that they don't really know the reason behind or the meaning behind. It actually just devalues all of the creativity fields, because it makes the people that you're creating it for not understand why you're doing it. And then it's just about pricing at that point. Who's the cheapest? Who can get me this the quickest? It kind of removes the actual meaning that is behind it. For wedding invitations too, Canva is a great tool. I even use Canva sometimes to make a quick graphic for my social media, things like that. But the tool must be used in a way that makes sense. So invitations, of course, anyone can make their own invitations. That's how I started. I started making my own invitations, but I had the graphic design to back me up. Now, my invitations now versus 2019 are very different, because I learned the standards, the etiquettes, why we word things a certain way. It's so everyone can get to where they're trying to go, knowing exactly the vibe, the tone, the etiquette, the dress code, the timing. All of that is important to be able to run a successful day. So again, it's not just about a pretty picture, a pretty invite with your names on it. There's actual reasons of why it's set up a certain way by the professionals. And that goes for any kind of field. I just feel like one should take the time to study what they want to make a business out of. If you just hit the ground running, you're just trying to make money quick and be an entrepreneur and kind of just run with it, you're going to run into a lot more problems than if you were gradually building that business, learning the steps, learning the correct way to do things. I recently designed something for somebody, kind of like a recreation design, and they gave me the logos that they had made from a previous designer and things like that. And it was so low quality that I couldn't use it on a printed item. So it pays to educate yourselves as the business owner and for potential clients and the people that are hiring you to understand what actually sets your work apart and why it's important. Yes, it may be cheaper to go with a designer that can make you a quick logo for $100, but then when push comes to shove and you actually need that for certain materials, that person that is charging so low, they're charging low because they don't know their worth, they don't know the field, they don't know much about the thing that they're selling. And that just goes to show, again, you get what you pay for. I try to keep my logo prices quick for small business owners. I have different packages based on the level of business and how the logo will be used because I genuinely do care about small business. I know that it's a lot of overhead costs to start a business, and so I do try to keep those low to cater to the people that I want to help. So I get that, but what I'm saying is more about when you pay $100 for a logo, that's what you get, a logo that you can only be used maybe for a social media graphic. When push comes to shove and you need it for printing materials, an event, a market that you're doing, business cards, all of that, if they don't know the correct ways to set up those files and give you what's going to make sense, you're going to actually run into more issues and probably have to hire a second designer to correct that. So you end up actually spending more over time versus just going to the person that is an expert in it. And the same can be said for my wedding stationery business. I have a lot of people who go the DIY route or they hire a Canva designer to do something quick and cheap, and they end up coming to me to rectify it because when they get to the printing stage, it's not set up correctly for print. The printing is off. There's a white margin. The pieces don't fit together. They got envelopes from this place, invitations from this place, RSVP cards from another, and it doesn't make sense. And that's where I'm saying do your research and learn, print it out yourself. If you're just a business starting out, do all the things yourself so you can run into those problems before your clients do. And again, this is no shame or hate to businesses just starting out or, designers just starting out who want to just work with Canva and things like that. That's no shame. We all start somewhere. I didn't know what I was doing. If you see my work from when I first started, completely different. I didn't know the right ways to export files and save them at the right DPI for people to use and things like that. So we all start from somewhere, but that's why I'm saying it pays for you and your clients to do their research and learn more about what you're doing before you offer it, because you're going to be more successful that way. If you start out offering certain things and you run into problems and that word gets out, that's actually damaging to your business just starting out. They're going to remember your name. They're going to share it. Word of mouth is super important. So if you start out not knowing what you're doing and you're charging people, that's where you run into issues. If you want to do freebies for your friends and family, that's fine, and you're going to learn from that, right? You may not make money off of it, but you're going to learn the trial and error, and you're going to do better next time when you are ready to charge someone for it. And I know it takes a lot of patience to sit and learn and go through every step to start your business before it's going to make it worth it. If you really want a successful business, it pays to sit back, learn, listen, and do your research. Especially if you just hit the ground running and don't really know all the ins and outs of what you're doing and what it takes to run a business. Organizing your books, posting to social media consistently, doing all the expense reports and all those things, you're gonna burn out too quickly. I've seen so many accounts just pop up because they just did one thing real quick for a friend and now they're like, here's my business. They hit the ground running, they go too hard, they burn out, and then they give up before it even hits a return. You've probably seen it with your friends too. They start an Instagram for a business they're doing, doesn't work out in a few months, they're on to the next thing. It's genuinely what sets apart the successful businesses versus not, is taking that time to sit with it. My husband and I's mobile dog grooming business, it is a franchise, but it's independently run. And because it's so new, we had to sit and work out all the kinks. And yeah, it sucks to not make money right in the beginning. It sucks to shell out money and build something from the ground up and wait for that return, but it pays off. We've had other people join in other states, and they're around the same age as my husband and I, and after 4 months, they close the doors on the business and give up. That's really where the difference between success and failure comes in, is the giving up part and running before you can walk. If I gave up on every business I started because it wasn't showing me a return in the way I wanted, I wouldn't even be where I am right now. My stationery design business took that whole 5 years to be able to be sustainable enough where it is today. Now, not everyone has that time to wait. That's why I usually, recommend staying with your job or getting a part-time job while you're building your business until you're ready to let it take the reins. But it does take that time and that patience and understanding that you may not hit a return for months or a year or 2 years, 3 years. But if you wait that time, that's what creates a successful business. So more over on design trends and logos and all those things. I have been noticing there's trends in everything. Trends change, things get modernized. Right now, with logos and things like that, the vintage is in and people want those funky kind of fonts, and there's a trend. Trends are there for a reason. We like to keep up with them. But it's nice to stay relevant, to keep up with the times, modernize or upgrade your logo and brand. But again, designs are there for a reason. It's not just about what looks pretty and matches your individual favorite style, but it should also match the style of your business. And it should make sense. If you're wanting that vintage font, tell me why. Or think about why. Does it make sense for your brand? Do people understand your business more by having that? If not, it may not be the route to go. Yes, it's up and coming, and yes, it's relevant, but think about how many people are also doing that. Your brand is not going to be as recognizable if you have the same logo and design and look and color scheme as someone else doing the same thing. It's not going to set you apart as much. When you go back to the psychology behind design, there is actual reasons. Certain colors invoke a feeling or emotion. Like red is very abrupt and emergent. That's why you see it on hospitals and things like that. Blues are more calming. Green usually means environmental. Things like that all have a purpose. So just because you like, lime green and burnt orange and things like that, it has to make sense for your business. Now, you can, of course, include a little bit of your style and flair into your logo, your branding, your website, but do it in a way that works for your business. If your business is modern, clean, and you're catering to a certain, upscale look, having those kind of colors doesn't really make sense. Even though you might like them, it has to make sense for your brand. That's why I always do a consult call before even beginning on a logo or design or anything, is because yes, you may tell me that you want this certain look and this kind of font and this logo example is what you really like. But during the call, I'm going to suss out more about your business and you and why you're doing what you're doing and what makes sense, and then come up with an alternative that may be in that style but has that reasoning to back it up. Even with my stationery design, I'm about to implement a form that just gets to know the person and what they like and they don't like, and let me not start from square one and guess what design they're going to like, but I have something to stand on. And if it's a business, I would maybe do one that's more about what do you want to portray in your business? What do you want that to look like? What do you want people to know you for, to stand out for? And we can start there. That goes along with what kind of business are you running? What are you offering? all of those go into a logo and brand package. That's also why I reiterate it's super important to stay on brand when you're posting on social media. For example, the fonts that you use should be the only fonts that you use. Use that across everywhere, because if you change it up and change the colors, you're no longer recognizable and people are going to forget who you are. That means sticking with the same design elements. That means sticking with the same colors that your designer picked out for you, because it's all there to play a role and get a psychological response from the viewer. So that's all I want to touch base on today. If you have anything that you're struggling with in your business, I am going to start offering business consultations where I just take an hour to go over everything that you're doing, take a look at your social media pages, your graphics, how you're responding to clients, all of those things to kind of give you an idea of what you can improve upon, what you should be doing better, all these things to help you survive and thrive. Thank you all for being here and being patient with me as I've had a little bit of a lull here, and hope you understand why I do that sometimes or why I felt it was necessary. I'm out here in the trenches with my fellow small businesses, and I feel you. You're not alone in it. Even successful businesses are having to close their doors or pivot or change what they're doing or go back to their part-time job, things like that. And that's understandable. And hopefully this podcast just helps give you a sense of understanding of the realities behind running a business and what sets the successful people apart. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoy this cooler weather that we're getting if you're on the East Coast, and I will see you for the next one.